All right. I see people are starting to log in. Welcome. If you hear me, raise your hand. Monica was the first one to raise her hand. No, you guys are late. Too late. Too late. All right. And Jeff can hear me. That's good. So why don't we get started? So we're going to weave in and out of the handout, the slide, and go on, a couple other programs, and maybe even wander our way to the internet. So let's talk about a virtual listing presentation. I did one yesterday. In some ways it's similar, and in some ways it's very different. I'm going to show you what my listing presentation looked like, and if you're in my coaching program, you'll be given a copy of all the slides, which will be in a format that you could modify in case you wanted to do it too. So there are some ups and downs to doing a virtual listing presentation. For a lot of us, it's much easier for us to build a relationship with somebody face-to-face than on Zoom or GoToMeeting or Google Meet or Skype or whatever. So, however, I'm just saying it's not quite the same, but we're going to talk about some of the things you could do to build relationships. You also are going to be asked to make a presentation sometimes on property that you haven't even visited in person. So what I've been seeing is there are two types of virtual listing presentations, in the sense of, have you seen the property, can you see the property, or no? So what I have found is the people that I've been talking to basically say, come on over and take a look at the property. The presentation I did yesterday morning, I had an opportunity to see the property. It was vacant a little while before. They let us in, social distancing, wore a mask, but I had an opportunity to actually walk through the property. Let's say, however, that you're dealing with a seller where you do not have an opportunity to walk through the property because they don't want you to go and walk through the property. They're sheltering in place and they mean it. And then what would you do, right? How would you do that? Because now you're asked to do a presentation in talking about pricing on a property you haven't actually seen in person. There are things you can do, which we're going to talk about, but obviously you being there and, opening the door, that would be better. And then not everybody is as good with technology. I was about to say, as we are. How about this? There are a lot of real estate agents that aren't any good with technology. And maybe you've gotten better with Zoom because there's meetings and things like that, and you've gotten used to it. That doesn't mean that all of our clients have gotten used to it. I have a listing right now where the seller really doesn't have a computer, right? His computer is his phone, not a techie person. Right. So now plus you get the idea. They may not know what Zoom is. They're not they have a different experience. So one of the things is we're dealing with people that may not know about, understand, or are used to using the software that we're going to talk about. That's not necessarily a big problem. I'm just saying, right? Just saying. So as an overview, part of what we're doing now is introducing the process. And for example, one of the things, we're going to talk about the different technology that you could use, but you might want to explain or put together something where you can explain what the process is going to be. For example, if you can't actually go see the property in person, what you would ask as part of the process is that they make a video or take shots with their phone, camera shots, stills and send it to you so that you can look at it in advance. It's doing it at the presentation, right? And I've heard of agents that at the presentation, they'll have the client is using the phone, the presentation is on the client's phone. That's going to be more common than you think. And they would have the client walk through the house, you know, and talking. And what would happen is a phone call would come in, right? And then it would disrupt the listing presentation. You understand, you may not want to disrupt the listing presentation. You would prefer that they were viewing the presentation on their computer than on their phone. But if you're asking them to do a walkthrough, that means the phone, not the computer, right? So if we separate them walking through from the presentation so that they can walk through and videotape the house, what I tell people is I would tell people, pretend you're a real estate agent, right? This will be fun. Pretend you're a real estate agent and you're showing your house. What would you say? What would you do? Run through that. And by the way, I oftentimes say to people when they're done, I'd say, that was really good. You know, I'm impressed. Have you ever thought about getting your real estate license? That was better than many agents that I know. So what we want is them to walk through the house. Now, the thing about video is that if they're making a video on their camera, sometimes it's difficult to send videos that get too long. Right? In other words, you know, without software, without knowing something about technology, if the video gets too long, they may have difficulty sending it to you. So they might need to break it into pieces, like do a series of short videos and send them to you, take pictures, send that to you. You get the idea, right? But so if you can't see the property in person, you'd be explaining to them, well, one of the first things I'd like you to do is to walk through your property and take pictures and make videos and tell us, brag about the property, tell us the good, the bad, tell us everything about the property. And that'll make, you know, it easier for me to make a pricing strategy suggestion for you, right? Then after you've done that and I've received it, I'm going to do some work and I'm going to send you an invitation and we're going to meet on a certain day and go through the process. What technology are you going to use? Now, the world is using Zoom, right? It seems like. I've had GoToMeeting for a long time, but I may be migrating to Zoom because it's the one most people use. Now, your most obvious choices are Zoom, GoToMeeting, Google Meet, Skype, or Microsoft Teams. Out of that group, I would say Zoom is the most popular of all of them. Now, you can do a one-on-one or a one-on-two presentation. In other words, you could have 3 people logged into your Zoom when you're doing it, you and 2 others, without having to spend any money. If you have, let's see, how many people did I have? There were 4, which included me, involved in from pictures of different people, right? You know, if you only have a free plan and you have more than 3 people, it's limited to 40 minutes. So in order to have more people, like for example, if you're going to do a virtual open house and you use Zoom, you can only have 3 people, including yourself, online, or you're going to have to pay for the upgrade. All right, I'm just saying. Now, Google Meet, on the other hand, is not as slick and cool as Zoom, but it doesn't cost anything. Right? It doesn't cost anything, and you could have an unlimited number of people. Skype, right, doesn't cost anything. Microsoft Teams, and I know Microsoft owns Skype, but on the list of what people are used to using, it's kind of, you know, down on the list. If the people are unfamiliar with what Zoom is or any of these others, it might be useful to send them a link, a video that explains what Zoom is and how to download it and how to use it. And it's not that difficult, but you understand you might need to educate them on the technology. My general thing is, since I'm familiar with Zoom, the whole group is, I would ask the client, have you ever used any of this, screen sharing, where you're networking online? I'm not saying the right name, but web conferencing. How about that? Have you ever used any of that software in the past? And if they say, yeah, I'm at work and we use Microsoft Teams all the time, I would say, cool. I'll set up a Microsoft team meeting, right? If they say, no, I've never used anything, I oftentimes will ask people, I'll ask people about their religion. I mean, and what I mean by that, I would say, are you a Apple person, right? Is your phone an Apple phone or is your phone an Android phone? Now, that's what I mean, because you know what I mean? It's like a religion. And depending on their answer to that question, I would probably use different software. I might, right? If they say, well, I'm an Android user, I'm a Google person, I use Gmail, I might use Google Meet, right? Because Google Meet integrates with Gmail and it integrates with Google Calendar, and it's a Google thing and they're already a Google person. If it's an iPhone that they use, now you might be thinking, well, you could do FaceTime with them, but you're going to want to show your screen. I would then, and they don't have, a web conferencing software on their computer already, I would suggest Zoom, right? I would ask them, do you have Skype? If you ever use Skype, and say, oh yeah, we use Skype. Well, you could, I don't know, right? But obviously the two most common ones would probably be Zoom or Google Meet. Zoom may involve some expense. Can you find videos on the internet that explain how to download, install Zoom, and how to use Zoom? What do you think? Do you think you can find videos on how to download and use Google Meet, right? So one of the parts of this is to find out how sophisticated the other person is. Are they familiar with this? Have they ever used it? Do they have a preference? And if they don't know, and by the way, I've had people say, well, I don't know anything about it, and I'd say it's going to be easy. I'm going to send you a link. You click on the link and then we'll talk, right? That's pretty much it, right? One of the other things I just want to say about this is, maybe not you, but there are agents out there that I know think that this is going to be really difficult, that people are going to like to do it, that it's not going to work very well. And I'm just telling you, I don't get that much resistance. It seems to work really well. And there are some advantages. I'm just saying, having been on many listing appointments, it was a lot neater and cleaner when I did it on Zoom the other day than a lot of times. So then offer the home inspection process up front. This is also related to if you can't go see the house, but where you can see it or not, what you really want is a termite, a property, a roof. If it's got a pool. You want all the inspections that you could get on a given property, and you're going to want them up front. Now, if I'm doing a market analysis for a property and these people are really motivated to sell and they go and get the inspections and reports and I can see them, I'm in a better position to come up with a pricing strategy. But having inspections and reports up front is more important now than it was. It's always important, but it's more important now because people are not as easy to go look at the property, and so we want them to do more online. You should practice this and troubleshoot it to make sure that you know how to conduct a meeting and how to share your screen and how to do all that. In advance, I emailed a PDF of my listing presentation. I emailed it to them in advance so that they could read it. And then virtual showing appointment time is game time, right? When you actually do it. And I'm going to talk about actually how do you schedule this and how do you, conduct them. Would you ask the seller to pay for inspections, or would you do it as a listing agent after getting the listing? Neither, or yes. So first of all, I don't pay for inspections, right? I'm not saying I have never paid for an inspection, but I'm just saying I don't pay for inspections. My last listings have all been at 6%, and the inspections were paid by the seller, but it was billed to escrow, but I don't pay for inspections as a general rule. So I don't know, I just wouldn't. So modular presentation. When I talk to the seller, I have my presentation available for me to go to. And by the way, who should set up the presentation? Should they set it up in Zoom, or should you set it up in Zoom? And the answer is you should set it up, because you want to start out as the host, right? Because there's screen sharing and other things. And if they're the host and they don't know how it works, you understand. So I'm sharing my screen and I have my presentation, and what I'm ready for is to jump to whatever part of it that might be necessary in order to have the discussion with the seller, right? And so, should I do this now? So I learned a long time ago that at a listing appointment, you should talk about what's important to the seller and nothing else, right? Pretty much nothing else. So when I email in advance the PDF of my listing presentation, the way I always start the listing appointment, and I did this yesterday, was after the chit chat and all that other kind of stuff, and she got her microphone to work so we could, she unmuted herself. After all that was taken care of, I asked the seller, what is it that, did you have a chance to look over what I sent you? Yeah. What is the most important thing you'd like to discuss or learn, or what would you like to do? Now, you're going to find that there are, generally speaking, two kinds of listing appointments. The most common one is a conversation appointment rather than a presentation appointment. I've had a lot of new agents over the years want to go with me on a listing appointment, right? Because they wanted to see the presentation. Right? And so a lot of times they were disappointed because they didn't see the presentation. Where's the presentation, right? It seemed like most of the time I was asking them questions and where's the presentation? Now, I've been on appointments where the seller has said, give us your presentation. We want to see the presentation. But you understand that's rare. Now, I happen to know in this particular case, we're competing against two other agents, but I think we have an in, and I'm not that concerned. You'll know soon enough. But if it's we want a presentation, then they're expecting you to go from start to finish through a presentation. But normally, that's not what, she did not say yesterday morning, I want to hear your listing presentation. Right? That's not what she said. She said she wanted to talk about pricing. And my suggestion is you talk about what's important to the seller. And I was sharing a story yesterday with another agent where somebody that I was coaching had a listing appointment in Cupertino on a condominium. It was her first listing appointment. And so she wanted to role play in advance, and she wanted to start off with like a canned explanation. And would you do a CMA? I'm getting to that, Dimitri. And so I had told her, rather than starting off by a presentation, ask the sellers what they would like to talk about. So we go there. I was there sort of as the wingman backup. And she says to the sellers, well, what's the most important thing you'd like to learn today? What would you like to do? And they looked at each other and they said, we have some questions we would like to have answered. So I had told her that whatever they want to do that. So we go and answer all of their questions. By the time they were done, they sighed, they were relieved, they closed their little book where they had written all the questions. And then they said, well, what else do we need to know? Right now, we ended up getting that listing. There were two other agents that they were interviewing. One of them was Mary Tan. Now, this was a Cupertino listing. If you're not familiar with Mary Tan, she's the #1 agent in the city of Cupertino, the #1 agent in Cupertino, and the brand new agent got the listing instead of Mary Tan. And I had asked the sellers, why did you pick us? And their explanation was, well, yeah, Mary Tan, you know, all she did is talk about herself, and we never got a chance to ask our questions. Well, you understand what I'm saying? So what we want to do is, rather than have to go from beginning to end, what you need to do is to be familiar enough with your presentation that if they say, I want to talk about pricing, you can go right to that. And yes, Dimitri, I did a CMA, right? And if it was, I have a class on the 5 ways to value property, but anyhow, I did a CMA. And by the way, I included that in what I sent to her, and there's positives and negatives about showing your CMA in advance. I don't think that they were sharing our stuff with the other agents, but I'm just saying. So you understand, you need to be able to do. You need to be able to do a presentation from start to finish. You need to be prepared for a seller to say, give me the presentation. And you also need to know it well enough that they could say, I want to talk about the marketing plan, or I want to talk about the commission, and you can go to whichever one. Mind your client's knowledge. What I mean by that is you need to ask them to explain what their house looks like in much greater detail than we might have done in advance, right, in the past, because I'm going to go there and look at it, right? So I don't really need to hear what they have to say about it. But I would be very, have you done any alterations or repairs? When did you move in? About 12 years ago. Have you made any modifications, made any repairs? In fact, one of the documents that I would show them on the screen and go over in the presentation, perhaps, is a realist printout, right? Although we're not printing it, report on their property that says bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and all this other kind of stuff, because I want them to confirm that that's what they got. Right? I want them to confirm that. You may be surprised to hear that sometimes what it says in the county records is not what you are looking at the house. Digital and physical resources, most of it is digital. There's a possibility to mail them something in advance if you want to do that. I actually just email because I'm cheap and lazy. And you want to keep it a discussion. One of the things I've done in the past when I'm coaching people is I go through a list of sort of like a scorecard, like how are you doing on this and how are you doing on that? And one of the sections is how good is your listing presentation? And on a scale of 0 to 10, and somebody says, well, what does a 10 look like, right? And the answer is a 10 listing presentation is where they talk 90% of the time, right? Or how about this? You're listening or asking questions 90% of the time, and you're presenting like 10% of the time. That's why agents were disappointed when they went with me on the listing appointment, because it seemed like all I was doing was asking questions, taking notes, asking questions, and a lot less presenting than they were hoping for. Keep it a discussion, and then tell them what the steps are. It's just like if you were going to go on a long boat trip, right? A long boat trip. And there are the concept of safe harbors, right? We're going to go here, and then we're going to be there for an evening, and then we're going to go over to here, and then we're going to go to there, and then we're going to, right? And so explaining to people where we're going in the process, it's a good idea. What else? So these are just some do's and don'ts. You might want to practice this. Right? If you're not good at the words, if you're stumbling around, you might want to practice. You might want to find somebody to practice with. Those of you that are online, do you have a practice buddy? Somebody that you can practice with and practice scripts with. I'm just saying, our tool. You've probably heard the old line that if you're going to spend the day chopping wood, you might as well, you ought to spend an hour or two sharpening the axe, So in our tool is the words we say, and how sharp is your axe? You might want to practice. You should prepare them for the call. Is there things you want to know? Is there things that you want? Are there questions you have? You ought to let them know how it's going to work and what kinds of things they want. If they don't want you to view the home in person, don't push it. Right now, I think in our area there's more people that say, come on in, but I'm just saying, well, we really, let them make the video and do the first online, and then when they feel comfortable with you and the process and they're going to do it, then you can go see it. You should be honest about what's happening in the market. All right, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in terms of the market. What if the seller doesn't want to use Zoom, etc.? Would you do a listing presentation over the phone? The answer is yes. I've done listing presentations over the phone. However, it's more difficult to show them things. But usually it's done, on a computer. That would be the best. What about what's happening in the market? Are sales up or down? By the way, I'm going to this afternoon tape a new version of the market report for May for Santa Clara County, slides and all that, plus what's happening in the market. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. You guys will probably see it. If I didn't have appointments this morning, I probably would have had it by now. If you're in my coaching program, you're going to have access to the slides and you could change them, like put your name and information on it, and I would help you with the process of making a video. Right? I'm just saying. So what is really happening in our market? Well, sales are down about 50%, right? Prices for single family homes went up a little bit year over year. Condos and townhomes down a little bit year over year. And the months of inventory has gotten larger. Now, what would you say? If they said, well, why don't we wait to put our home on the market until all of this shelter in place and all this stuff is over, and it's easier for people to look at homes and do open houses? What that would be a reasonable position, perhaps, for them to take. What would you say? Now, what I say, right, and by the way, one of the things that my suggestion, this is a very minor thing, but my suggestion, more competition. That's pretty good, Danny. That's essentially where we're going. There's two things. Danny has one of them. What you might want to do for a listing appointment is start by making a list of all the questions that the seller could possibly ask you. If you were selling a house and you were interviewing a real estate agent, what questions would you ask? You might even Google search questions to ask a real estate agent if I'm selling my house, because they might have that list of questions. Once you have the list of questions, you might want to think about, what am I going to say? If they ask me, how long have you been in the real estate business? Right? How many homes have you sold in our neighborhood? And you're like, well, this will be my first one. What about people with unrealistic expectations? If a seller demanding their April, and let's get to that later, right? Pricing, we'll get to pricing later, right? So what you should do, Dimitri, if you have an unrealistic seller, is refer it to me, right? And because you just don't want to work unrealistic sellers. Seems like they're all anyhow. So what's happening in the market? So if they, two things I would say to them about waiting. Danny has the first one is that if you wait for the shelter in place to be over and things to be more normal, right? Normal, I think, is a setting on a clothes dryer, but anyhow, but there'll be more competition. The other point, though, that I stress is think about who's out looking right now. What kind of buyers are willing to go through the PEAD forms and all of that other BS in order to go look at a home? What does that say about the motivation of those buyers, right? These are motivated people. They're willing to risk life and limb to go buy a house, right? So there may be fewer buyers right now, but there's also fewer sellers right now. and the buyers that are looking right now are in fact motivated. You should also know that people are in fact buying homes. You should treat it a lot like an in-person presentation. Mine looked a lot like a lot of them did, except I was, on my computer. You need to pay more attention to body language, right? Because you're not there to see them. If you're talking and they're rolling their eyes and looking at the ceiling, or, doing some texting or something, you got to pay attention. You should have facts and insights. Right now, in particular, people want to know the reality of the market, what's going on, what's likely to go on. Don't talk the whole time. I'm just throwing that back. You should have them talk, and everything should be ready to be signed. The listing agreements, all that sort of stuff. Now, some things, links, documents, other browser tabs that you might want to have. One of them could be Realist, which would mean going into the MLS and clicking on Realist and putting in the address of the property and pulling up that report. You can save it as a PDF. You could include it in the package you send them. And that it's just a quick way to say, look at this information and see it on the screen. Is this describing your house? Does this seem to be correct? You should have zip forms ready. The goal of a listing appointment is always to get them to sign the listing agreement. And what you're going to want to do when you're at the end of the presentation, and if they're ready, right? Even if they say they're not, they say, well, we want to think about it, and I'd say, great, you ought to think about it. I mean, this is a very important decision. Most people, in your position would really want to give it a lot of thought, because this is the most valuable thing you own that you're thinking of selling. So I understand that, but would it help in your thinking about it for me to go over the form and just explain, what's included and who's doing what and all that? I understand you want to think about it, but would it be okay for me to just go through the form? Now, one of the things I've learned about getting people to sign things is that they generally won't do it if it's blank, right? You understand? They're not going to do it if it's blank. So in order for them to sign it, it has to be filled out. This is brilliant, isn't it? It took me a long time to figure this out. So what we want to do is fill out the form. So, for example, I would say, no, let's say we were going to start right away. We'd start tomorrow, and we're going to for 180 days, and then we might list it, and pricing strategy. You understand while they're looking at it with you, you go through the form, typing up things, filling it out, just like you would if they were going to sign it immediately. I can't tell you how many times, but it's been many, many times where I've had people say at the beginning of an appointment, we aren't signing anything tonight, and then they signed that night, right? So just because people say we're going to sign anything tonight, that doesn't mean they won't. But they certainly won't if you've never explained what it is you want them to sign or fill it out. So you want to have as much of what's in zip forms there and ready to go. That means the template, if you have a listing appointment template or listing template that's got your name and your office name, your URA number, and it's got it in the right place as a listing agent, and you've imported their information either from RPR, right? That's usually where we have to import the information on a listing because it's not often in the MLS, so we can't use MLS Connect. We have everything filled out. You've done everything that you would normally do, and usually we're talking about when does it start and end, what is the price, what's the commission, and by the way, on this, type in 6%. That doesn't mean, I'll admit I have another listing that's not at 6%. But you get the idea. I could change it online because I've got the form I'm going to ask them to sign on the screen, and I'm explaining it, And by the way, you don't have to go through every line because they usually don't care about every line. I sort of summarize pages. If somebody wants me to go through every line, I would go through every line. And one of the things you ought to think about, and by the way, since you're sheltering in place and you got a lot of free time, isn't that right? You got a lot of free time. You ought to practice reading that residential listing agreement out loud right? To, I don't know, somebody you don't like, or, you know, someone that owes you money, or to your dog or whatever, so that you are practiced at saying the words that are in that form. So, and you know what the words are in the form and where they are in the form. So if somebody asks you a question about the form, you can actually answer it, right? And if you're in my coaching program, I would help you with the answers, but you might want to think about, what would I say if they asked me to explain this paragraph? Right? What would I say? Right? You know, I'm just saying. A net sheet. Now, doing one in advance, you need to practice this too. I'm good with the app on the phone, right? And most of the time, while I'm at the property with my phone, I'm figuring out what the net is likely to be from the sale of the property. And I use I use Fidelity One, Chicago Title. I mean, I use Chicago Agent One, which is the same program as Fidelity One. I'm just saying, but most of the big companies have them. Now, that's not going to help me on the virtual listing appointment that I have an app on the phone and I know how to use it, because this is on my phone and I'm doing the virtual presentation on my laptop. What that means is you need to have downloaded the version of this, or some depending on your title company, some have websites. Old Republic, you can log into their website and they have, you know, something that looks like this, but you might want to have that available and you might want to practice doing a net sheet. Fidelity One has a desktop app too. I know they do, Dimitri. Thank you for sharing that. And Chicago One does too. This is what you're looking at. Fidelity, if you didn't know this, owns Chicago Title. And that's why they have the same stuff, right? They do. But anyhow, you might be asked the question, how much am I likely to net from the sale of my house, right? And you in advance may not know that because you haven't talked to the seller about pricing yet. You could make one low and one middle and one high and then estimate it, or you could learn how to use the app, right? It's not that complicated. And your friendly title rep, and let's face it, they're all, you know, pretty friendly, would be happy on a Zoom call or whatever to show you how to do it, right? But it's not rocket surgery. But you might need to on the fly be calculating what their net proceeds are going to be. I'm just saying. If you're using RPR as your pricing strategy, you know, as your CMA, you might want to have the PDF of that available. I'm going to show you what I did. And if you have slides, you might want to have the slides available. Now, I guess that's it for that. So what did it look like, right, that I sent? So this is the, this was the basis of my presentation. And I could have sent more stuff, but because of the nature of the sale, it wasn't as necessary. But by more stuff, I mean a pre-listing presentation. And do you have one? Have you put one together? Sometimes we do too much, right? And so I don't want to send them too much stuff, but I also don't want to not send them enough stuff. I want them to know that I have stuff, right? And these are in PowerPoint. I have a Google Slides version. All of you that are in my coaching program will have access to it. You can customize it. I have the address of the property. That's an actual picture of the property. These are the goals. Now, what happened is that I had sent this to the seller in advance, and she had read it, and she didn't have questions about this, and she didn't have questions about that, and she didn't, you know, I mean, so I only talked about the things that she wanted to talk about. Right, that's the only ones that I covered. But let's say I was doing this as a presentation. How am I doing? I guess I might have to, in another class, I'm going to go through exactly what do you say. If somebody says, give me your presentation, what do you say, right, on this slide? What, if anything, do you say about that slide? Here's the home selling process, right? And, you know, it's good enough. 4 factors in every sale. And so I have words, obviously, that accompany all of this. She wanted to know about what was going on in the market and what her home would be likely to sell for. So I put together like a little series about the market. Now, she didn't ask me to explain this. I referred to it, but I'd already sent it to her in advance. And one of the sessions we're going to be doing this month is I'm going to have a lender friend talk about why is it so hard to get a loan? And yeah, and so this is a little bit of information about that it's harder to get a loan, and they're pulling back from the jumbo loans, and the credit lending standards are tightening, and that, you know, our friends at Chase want a score of 700 and a down payment of 20%. However, rates are low. Right? Now, they might, depending on your seller, they may already know all this, but they may not. So again, I sent this in advance, but didn't ask. I referred to the lending thing when answering other questions. I then have a slide that explains what the shelter in place is right now and what the actual showing instructions are supposed to be, and that there's a form. This is the cleaning and disinfecting protocols for shown properties as released by the state of California. And this is just a little thing that explains the listen agreement addendum or amendment and other optional listing provisions that we might wanted to check, like it has to be pre-qualified before we show the property. I have a little bit about what's in this PAD form, and I have a slide about the changes in the contract. Now, the seller did not really ask any questions about any of that, right? However, I could expect, and that seller, by the way, is not from around here, but a lot of this is happening everywhere. She's in Massachusetts, and they have stuff like this in Massachusetts too. So anyhow, but I had all of this here just in case they ask me the question, well, explain to me, what are we supposed to do between showings, and what are we supposed to do, you know, explain how property is shown during COVID-19. Explain how that has changed, you know, the contracts. Now, I'm actually going to be doing an update on because they changed some of the forms, as some of you know, because I've gotten calls from people that I coach, because the PED form is different. It's longer, it's 8 pages long. So anyhow, I have that little series where we could discuss those things. And then I go into some information about the particular property, and compared to the zip code, this is another Willow Glenner. And so this talked about the past 30 days as of 5/29/2020. The square footage average was $21.90 per square foot, lot size, list price, sales price, and then it went down. And then here's their numbers and the age. You know, look at how close some of those are. The square footage is smaller, but if you straight lined it, right, if they got what everybody else on average is getting in that zip code. And because my template actually had a place for an image up there, I threw in a screenshot of San Jose, and I stole that. I mean, researched it from, I went into MLS Listings public site, put in 95125 as the search, clicked on a property, scrolled to the bottom, and it has that graphic, that chart, used the screen capture program, copied it, pasted it there, right? Just because there was a hole, and I thought, nah, that wouldn't hurt. I threw this in. Now, this is a screenshot that came from RPR. And part of my thing is I would like to look different from everybody else. And a lot of agents don't even know what RPR is or how to use it. So you using it makes you look different from them, but how am I different from you if we're all using RPR and it looks the same? And RPR is stuffed with stuff, right? Stuffed with stuff. So what I do is I ran the RPR report, And then using a screen capture program, I went through and selected some of the slides that I thought would be interesting or more useful, right? Property history, listing price versus sales price. And this is an interesting little one because it shows what the difference is over time, right? So the chances of you getting more than your list price, it depends a lot on whether or not you sell it quickly or slowly, right? You know, just saying. And how many sales occur within what periods of time. I know, I like that. Market health charts and median home value versus the median listing price. You know, part of the thing is that we don't necessarily know if the person on the other side, you've heard me talk about the DISC profile, where you have the D's, the I's, the S's, and the C's. These are personality assessments, and the top part is the D and the I, and they're more outgoing people. The D is a formal person, all about results. The I is more about relationships, and down below you have more passive personality styles. The C is the analytical style, and but kind of formal, but the S's are very friendly, but less, they're more passive, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Now, in advance, I don't know who the other person is going to be at the other end of the webcam, right? I don't know. And if it's a couple, they probably are from two different quadrants. And what I've learned in the past is that I should be prepared for the analytical person. Even if I'm not, but I sort of am, but even if you're not an analytical person, that doesn't mean that the seller isn't an analytical person. And I happen to know that this particular seller had an advanced degree in finance, you know what I'm saying? And so they maybe, you know, I'm just saying. And of course, in our market, we deal a lot with engineers, right? And even if, and I've had agents say, well, nobody cares about these graphs and charts. And my response to that is, no, you don't care about graphs and charts. But that doesn't mean that your engineer, potential home seller doesn't care about graphs and charts. They probably really are into graphs and charts. So that doesn't mean I go through them all, right? Because she didn't want to talk about the graphs and charts. I mean, she looked at it, and you know, I get it. You know, the market isn't that bad. It's not too bad. So then here is a little map. Again, this is a screenshot which I borrowed from RPR. I also did another screenshot from RPR that went through some of the comparables. I don't think people want to hear all about every comparable, but these are just some of them. And again, if they're an analytical style, they'll see the comparables that I based it on. Now, I also have the whole RPR report, which I think in this case I'd emailed in advance also. But, you know, a lot of times this is more than what they want to know. What I also found was a comparable that was pretty much a dead ringer to the one, this particular house. I got to see it. And this, both of the seller is a trustee. Somebody died in the house, yes. It was built in 1959 and nothing has ever been done to the house except the roof has been replaced. Original kitchen, bathrooms, and things like that. So in Willow Glen, right? Yeah. So here we have a 3-2 in the neighborhood. By the way, this was less than a quarter of a mile away. That's smaller, 1281 square feet. And it sold for a little over $1 million, which was 820. And what I did is I copied some of the comments from the, you know, the MLS. Trustees sale. That's contractors, investors, flippers, and someone ready to take on a fixer project. Now, I also have the pictures of what that one looked like, but she didn't want to see, I mean, you know, that was in the whole RPR report. This was enough, right? You understand, we're talking about a house in the same zip code, built about the same year, not very far away, nothing had been updated, you know, also a trustee sale. They got $820 a square foot. Now, this property was $1,467, and at $820 a square foot, it's $1,202,000 940. Just saying, right? Straight lining it. I also always show people something like this. What does Redfin say? What does Zillow say? What does the RVM? And I explain, that these are automated valuation models, which means a computer is generating, a valuation based upon the property address and its known characteristics. And although this may not be dead accurate, necessarily, they certainly haven't ever seen the house. The buyers are going to look at this, right? I mean, I know real estate agents, by the way, that look at this. I coach people who say, well, I looked it up on Zillow, and Zillow says, or Redfin says, rather, and I would personally run my own CMA, but people are going to look at this. And just so you know, Redfin says 1,254,000, Zillow 1,237, RVM 133, and Realtor.com, God bless them, estimate is 1,404,000. Right? So I've showed them that. But I also have explained to them that none of those companies have actually seen the house. So for a pricing strategy, basically what I said, if your home is all fixed up and in, great condition, you have to look at all of the other properties that have sold recently and, in that area. And the thing about Willow Glen is that almost all of the comps are remodeled homes. I mean, they're remodeled, the Section 1 work is done, they have new floors, the kitchens, the bathrooms, they've been painted and staged, and that is not what we have, just saying, right? And so, so it's easier for me to say what your property would be worth if it looked like all the others, and that would easily be about 1.3, right? I mean, it could be 1.3, but there's over $100,000 worth of repairs that need to be done. And now, I don't think I pulled this up in advance, but there's a report that I had open, and it's called the Cost versus Value Report, which you can, if you Google search Cost versus Value Report, you can find it. And this is what the whole thing looks like. It's from Remodeling, costversusvalue.com, and I downloaded the one for San Jose, and what this does is it shows what a mid-range remodel for a bathroom or a kitchen in San Jose is likely to cost, right? Now, you can understand if all of the comps are pretty much, except for the one, all remodeled, then we really kind of know what remodeled ones are selling for. So what would it cost to remodel yours? And when I first saw the house, I said it's over 100,000 is what you're going to need to spend. So my pricing suggestion, and yeah, I put it there in red, just because I've seen this house, and I also just closed one in Willow Glen, and I'm familiar with what's going on, and I spent some time to think about it. That we should list it below 1.2, 199,888, something like that. We'd be more likely to get multiple offers. And by the way, she asked me, so what's your commission too? I mean, where do you look up remodel costs? I think I did that, didn't I? So type in cost versus value. This is from remodeling.com, or just the Hanley Wood group. And by the way, in RPR, there is a way to make adjustments for comparables based upon remodeling. So you said I suggested the price, yes. So, and the data that is used in RPR to calculate remodeling cost and value comes from the same source that report did. So Sandy asked, so you set a price? Yes. This I know was there's pros and cons. I've seen the house, right? I have seen the house. I know the market. I know that the seller is a pretty much all business, it seems like, kind a person and savvy. And there's two things that you need to be willing to say on a listing appointment. You need to think in advance what your answer is going to be, and you need to have it and be able to speak it too. And the first one is to the question, so what would you suggest I list my house for? You understand? It's a reasonable question they're going to ask you. What is your answer? You're going to have to say it. Now, my judgment is that since we're doing a virtual listing presentation and we're doing it online, and I'm not there to do a lot of the back and forth, so I know they're going to ask me. I just told them what I would, and because of a pricing strategy, my system doesn't have to hit it right on the money, right? We want to bid up. The second thing, and she asked this question too, the second thing that you need to have the answer prepared is, so what amount of commission do you charge? I said 6%. And she nodded, and said that's about what they charge around here. And I said yes, and then you're going to get the full marketing, and I just for a brief moment explained the marketing plan, but didn't spend very much time on that because she didn't sing. She just nodded and whatever. All right. So where are we? Pricing strategy. We did that. Pricing strategy. All right. So this was just a rudimentary. I did a screenshot because this was done before the end of the month, but at that time, what were the down 50% were the number of sales. And then this is sort of a little thing I use about pricing a little bit under, you're going to get more, pricing over, you're going to get less, and that ties in. And by the way, she just said, no, I don't want to lower the price later. I want to start with a low price, and I want to get the thing sold, and I don't want to hassle around, right? So anyhow, but I might have to explain that. This is where I talk about marketing, and she didn't want to hear about that. Sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes they don't. They assume you know what you're doing, but this is, if they said, give me your presentation, I explained the 3 phases: the pre-marketing, which could be 1 to 3 weeks, right? The marketing, which could be 2 to 6 weeks, and then 4 to 5 weeks to contract to close. And what do we do during the pre-marketing? You see the list: inspections, reports, disclosures. I didn't actually get to the slide because just talking about it, she was like, yeah, I want to do that. Now the home warranty, I'll explain that when I do a listing presentation class, but that's for sellers coverage, preparation of marketing materials, photos, virtual tour, staging. I don't like it that it goes on to I'll have to change that. I didn't like that. I didn't realize that it went on to another line. I have issues with things like that. And then the pricing strategy. This is what we're going to do. And then I have a section on virtual selling strategy. This is a breakdown from 2019 NAR survey of buyers and sellers about where people found the home they bought. So the point is, we want our strategy to deal with the things that are at the top of this list. So that means dividing what we're doing into 2 general categories. We're going to be marketing to the general public on the internet, and we're going to be marketing to other agents. And so this is what we're going to do on marketing to the public. These are all things. At some point, I'm going to show you how to make a single property website at no expense whatsoever. No expense whatsoever. Social media marketing, there we go. And then digital marketing, that's again a picture of the house, a little bit, we're going to get those, whatever. I'm going to the digital footprint, all major real estate company sites. Did I tell you that if you're in my coaching program, I'm going to give you a copy of this presentation and that you can modify? I don't know if I mentioned that. And by the way, I'll help you, make your own materials that you could, and how to practice the presentation. I talk about virtual open houses. Hopefully at some point we won't, we'll be able to do them in person, but, explain how that would work. This is how technology is helping buyers navigate the home process. And it talks about what people are looking for when they're online, and that now digital is obviously more important than ever. I mean, it was important, but since it's harder for people to go to the open house easily or just stop by and be a looky-loo, we need to have really good photographs. We need to have virtual tours. We need to have tours of the neighborhood. We need to have walkthroughs. We need to get our stuff together for a digital marketing. And then I talk about marketing to other agents. That's what you guys look like, right? That's what I see. And not agent tours, MLS exposure, personal promotion to agents, to the real estate board. You make a pitch at the marketing meetings. Communications, one of the things would be an estimate of the net proceeds, the market analysis, education, keeping you informed, providing feedback, marketing activity reports, monitoring the market. You'll get a schedule of events. And then the final phase is from offer to close and how all of that would work. And then there's the pictures, and there's you insert your own information, right? And so anyhow, that's what it looks like. And again, the idea isn't that we're going to go through the whole thing from start to finish, although they might ask us to go through the whole thing, in which case you ought to, be prepared to go through the whole thing. But it looks, I think, good, and people get it in advance, and it enhances your credibility and all of that. So was that enough? I don't know. I hope you've been virtually presented to enough for one day, because you've worn me out. So this Thursday, I'm going to be talking, I think the title of Thursday's class is Why Your Business Cards Suck. I think that's what I titled it. And it's going to be more than business cards. I'm going to talk a bit about branding and some other things that, I don't know, there's issues with that involve branding and that sort of stuff. So check that out. Otherwise, I will talk to you later. All right.
Yeah.